Hello, everybody. It is Rocco, your boy, coming at you with another Age of Sigmar video. In this video of the long-awaited things that scare Nighthaunt players. That's right. You know, when you walk up to the table and you see a Nighthaunt army coming up here, haven't you ever wondered, oh, do you hear that jingling? The chains, they're coming for you! But as a somewhat Halloweeny episode for this, with me being the big weenie here, what actually makes a Nighthaunt player shiver in their spectral cowls? Well, first let's go out with what is the Nighthaunt as an army? All right, it is Nagash's vanguard assault strike force of ghosts that charge in, hit hard. They are very thematically with their rules with that. The models are gorgeous. I have played them a bunch. My wife has played them more. But, you know, she hates being on camera and just likes doing behind the scenes stuff. So I've been forced to talk about this solo, and that's okay. But a lot of it is they are known up for their 4-up ethereal armor save that cannot be modified positively or negatively. They have a command ability where instead of like all-out defense for them, they get to have their ward save because they're death army-wide 6-up ward save. For one unit can be a 5-up depending on the phase. They have really cool abilities depending on how high you roll your charge rolls. And they bring sub-factions finally with their book from 3rd edition, which has been a very big help. And it has led to a bit of a skill discrepancy because Nighthaunt used to be the starter army that opposed Stormcast in 2nd edition. There are a lot of Nighthaunt armies floating around out there. I didn't even mean to make that pun. But that means that a lot of people can play this army, and it is a hard army to play. It always was. And depending on the build you went, you had to go to certain sub-factions depending on the models that you've collected. You know, there's a Blade Geist sub-faction specifically. There's a Dread Scythe Harridan sub-faction that I love personally. There's one that goes for hordes of models and units instead of more elite things that probably should see more play than it does. Then there's the one that a lot of people do play, the Emerald Host, where it's you get to curse several units, and then for each battle round you roll a dice, and then you can do so many mortal wounds to them, and it's a whole thing, right? That's a very high level overview of what Nighthaunt is. They move relatively quick for ghosts, and you know they all fly. It's an army where you don't have to worry about cover bonuses or terrain because you don't care. You don't have to do Mystic Shield, and you bring models back by spells. And there's a few abilities, and Nagash can go in this army, which is great. But at the same time, having like an 800-ish, 900-ish point god model could sometimes be a bit rough when you're an army that's pointed very heavily on your own stuff because you have abilities where you ignore save modifiers, you know, and have extremely high bravery, and generally, like, the average save in the army is a 4-up, unrendable. Lady Olander has seen a lot of good buffs recently with points decreases. She, in the newer book, got a better ward save. Kurdos is an amazing beat stick still, but, you know, it's... Now we're going to get into the things that scare Nighthaunt players, even with... They finally got shooting as a death army, which is amazing, with the crossbows. They have a lovely impact hit hero in Arlok the Drowned that can charge in, do mortal wounds, and then can trigger abilities off the Dread Scythe Harridans being near a unit that suffered damage in the turn. There should be a lot of stuff going for this army, right? This really could have been Brendan the Lord of Death on here going, oh my god, a 3rd death army, this is amazing, there's no weaknesses. But let me get my hand... Let me tell you about things that actually do scare Nighthaunt players, alright? The first thing is, a lot of your abilities are tied to how well you charge. You don't really control that. There's no bonuses that you could really get that you could stack and do things like in other armies. You got to roll 2 dice. Hope you get, I believe, at least a 7. Might be a 5. I've got the book right here. His battle traits. Because this is the Wave of Terror. Yeah, first one. Sorry, it's a 4 to a 7. Is you get Shriek, which is -1 to hit from hit rolls that target that unit that charged. Cool. 8 to 9 is Stun. It's -1 for save rolls for attacks that go into the unit you charged. And 10 up is a strikes last effect applies to the unit you charged, which I got really excited and said really fast because these are amazing. Average on 2 dice is a 7. This should be very easy to get 3 or 4 charges in. You get 2 of these and you wreck house, right? But all you have to do to beat this is screen out the Nighthaunt player so then they can't actually get their bonuses in. And then all of a sudden, sure, cool, your screen's fighting last. If they pile in around the screen and do draw in your cool unit, they're not getting their whole Nighthaunt unit into your cool unit. That's a hammer that'll then wipe them in return. If it's around charging, you just have to play the movement game smarter. Then all of a sudden, the only way they can charge is if they get a 12. And if not, their whole army is just sitting there. They have a cool deep strike mechanic where they fully deploy their army, and then so many units can get taken off the table and show up later. But that's not as good as their old deep strike mechanic of for every unit you put on the table, 1 goes in reserve. Nighthaunt are scared of some of their battle tactics, honestly. Like they have one that says, complete this battle tactic if 2 or more terrified enemy units fail a battle shock test during this turn. Now, to terrify an enemy unit, again, looking at the battle traits here, we have a thing called Aura of Dread, where if an enemy unit is within 3 inches of a friendly Nighthaunt unit, they're terrified. What that means is they cannot issue or receive the Inspiring Presence command. Doesn't affect other Nighthaunt units. That's great. But then you got to be in combat with everybody. And this army also can... Let's see here. We have an ability for retreating and charging, which is great. With the... But you want to be in combat to do your stuff. You want to be charging constantly. You've got so many things you want to do with this army. And if you fail your charge rolls... Because that's cool. Great. Yeah, cool. Enemies, within 6 inches. You can't... If you don't land the charge, you're just out there in your ghostly sleeves looking around like, oh, this is my life. And going back to the battle tactics, with some of these are a little bit hard for a Nighthaunt player to do because it involves interacting with your opponent. Okay? Like, Death by 1,000 Cuts. You complete this tactic if an enemy hero or monster is destroyed by attacks made by friendly chain rafts or spirit host units. In this book, 6s to hit auto wound the unit that you're fighting. So a lot of units like spirit host that used to do mortal wounds lost them. So that gets to be harder to do, and if you're calling out, hey, I need you to have a hero or a monster for me to kill, oh, if I've already killed all your heroes, or you're going to best day ever your guy, and I only have rend 1 because I charged you, and it's hard, because chain rafts are also your chaff unit. You got a little hero on a 32mm base, or a 28mm base if it's an elf, or... You're not getting that many models in to be able to hit it. Mass Panic. Complete this battle tactic if 3 or more enemy units on the battlefield are terrified. If the game's going good for you, you've killed those units you just charged into combat against. In 3 units of yours need to be in combat, there's a chance that there was trading, there's a chance that there's a lot of variables. You got to make 3 charges into 3 different units. One stop, no return. Reveal this battle tactic. Pick one objective marker on the battlefield that your opponent controls. Complete it if you control it and there's a friendly black coach within 3 of that objective. Black coaches should be more popular. And again, this army should be extremely good. And in the right hands of someone that knows the ins and outs of this army, that I've been playing it for a long time, you can work around these things. But not everyone has the black coach. Not everyone's bringing chain rasp. In fact, some of these sub-factions, you don't want to bring chain rasps on their 5-up armor save because you're bringing 30 to 60 Harridans. You're bringing 30 to 60 Blade Geists. And again, part of this is I'm going to call my shot. I'm going to kill your thing. I'm going to kill it with a certain unit. I got to do a certain thing. I've got to make you feel all these battle shocks. I've got to hope I don't kill all your units. Some of these, if you're not careful, will be counterintuitive to how you need to play the game to go through 5 rounds. You know? Because if you're looking to kill a bunch of stuff in order to score these objectives and trade out points, you know, if you're going against a really elite army and if you're not careful, you'll screw yourself out of all your book tactics by round 2 because you've done too much. And that brings up the other thing. Nighthaunt have a problem where, sure, cool, they ignore Rend. If you just have a lot of attacks coming in, just basic attack, like let's say, I don't know, Dark Shards that are like 2 shots each, right? You bring 40 Dark Shards, that's 80 shots. You don't care about Rend. They don't have Rend. You know, you get like 60 through. Are you going to be able to pass 64 up armor saves? No. You're going to, by the math, pass 30. And then, sure, you discorporated to have the 5-up ward. And then a third of that 30 will be gone. That's still 20 damage on average. Where you end up losing your unit, because that's 300 some odd points of something they just put all those shots into. And if even Petey agrees, it's rough out here, ain't it? He's even sad for it. Ah, what a dog. Man, if I knew as much about Warhammer as him, I'd be winning every tournament, but oh well. But when it comes to all this, you know, there are armies that just, they have 2 to 3 battle tactics in their book they can just do. And then they can just futz around the GHB ones and be okay. If you're already going to be down 6 points, it's rough. Now, Games Workshop, again, has been giving a lot of love to Nighthaunt. They got a new grand strategy that's doable. They have been going down in points a lot. And in this, you know, era of Magic being better, right? Nighthaunt's main way to get models back, besides rallying, would be spells on their foot wizards that you're bringing to do the Andorian Acolytes Battalion. And this brings us to this evergreen point of things that scare Nighthaunt players. That will always be true no matter what edition we're in. They're scared of spell doms. And I'll go back on the definition of a spell dom is like an army that's extremely dominant casting and denying spells. Particularly armies like the Lumineth Realm Lords, Seraphon are huge on that. And if you're already getting like +2, +3 to cast and deny, and then you run into something like Khorne that'll just stop you. But if you bring in these primal dice with it to something that was already getting these pluses to cast and stop you, and you don't come with those natively yourself, it's going to feel really rough. And if that's the only way you can get models back to your unit, because you're Nighthaunt, when the unit is fully dead, it's just fully dead. You don't bring half of it back like Soulbright Glaive Lords. You know, you don't have abilities that just trigger when it's your hero phase, like the Ossiarch Bone Reapers, to just say, hey man, put 3 models back in that unit. Heal 3 wounds on that hero. You don't get that every turn. you have to actually go out and swing with magic, and if you fail your spell, it's gonna feel rough. If you roll snake eyes and you blow yourself up, that's gonna feel even worse. So you have to be picking your fights and be smart about how you score your objectives. You have to watch out for volume of attacks. You have to watch out um, for people that are better at magic than you, or armies like Khorne that just stop you from being good at magic. You know, people with auto unbinds. Again, Lumineth Realm Lords have that. Stormcast have that. There are armies that have abilities that stop you from bringing models back. Anyway, just Stormcast has that on a unit champion of Secretors that people are starting to take because they're running into zombies and other things that were better at doing this anyway. You know? Or if you run into Skaven and they've got a unit of 60 clan rats, all of a sudden they roll enough dice, your elite 10-man Bladegeist Revenant unit that is only 10 wounds, it's 1 wound per model, is going to be shredded? That's going to be rough. And another thing that they're really scared of, because, again, you're oddly kind of elite if you're going into 2 of the bigger sub-factions here for Nighthaunt, which I have on my notes. Bear with me. The Quicksilver Dread, which favors Dread Scythe Heritance, and the Scarlet Doom, which gives impact hits to your Bladegeists. And then you've got the Grieving Legion, which is the Horde one. And then the Emerald Host, which is just kind of the catch-all and does mortal wounds. But Nighthaunt are pointed to still be a bit more elite at the moment. And you could play it as a Horde, but then you just have, again, a lot of 5-up armor saves on Chain Rasps. And your Spirit Hosts that used to be these mortal wound machines are now bodyguards for heroes, which, again, seems good. But a lot of your damage gets wiped out when you lose these 10 ghost strong units and you have no way to bring them back. And so, these are things that scare Nighthaunt players. Are they unplayable? No, they're still in a good spot because it's a 4-up armor save the army. Listen, if you're a Nighthaunt player and that day you just are feeling yourself with your armor saves, you will be invincible. Even this past Adepticon that I went to, the team that won the event beat the snot out of my Deepkin specifically at one point because I was an elite army. I didn't bring my Reavers. I didn't bring my Thralls. And the guy kept making 4-up armor saves against my normally neg 3 Ren 3 damage attacks from my Achillean King and made my turtle look silly to the point where my teammate turned to me and said, "Hey, didn't you just table the other 2 players in the round before yourself? Are you lying to me, John?" I'm like, no, that was real. It's real. And I got gaslit by my own teammate. But, again, these gaseous forms of these ghosts do have play. It's hard, and it depends on, a lot of the time, luck to back up your skill and positioning. Because part of this, too, again, it's the charges, it's the movement. You have to be smart to play this army in position. But the other half of it, too, is you need to be able to roll dice really well and consistently. And that's the final thing that scares Nighthaunt players, is if they can't roll a 4-up that day. They can't roll the 6-up ward save, They don't make those charges, and then all of a sudden they're getting charged and they don't get their bonuses. So actually, bonus thing they're scared of, their opponents charging them? As bad as that sounds, that's kind of where we're at. But thank you for watching. Maybe in the future I'll have someone on to talk about how to fix Nighthaunt. But again, they're like so close to being oppressive. They're so close. They're fun to play because it's a slot machine. It's just you're just trying to roll hot enough to go out there. So if you're good, if you want to gamble without the monetary problems besides paying GW prices for stuff, this is the army for you. And if you're playing against them, well, bring a bunch of volume of attacks, bring some mortal wounds. If you're better at magic than them, stop them from healing their units up and returning bodies. And take the fight to them. They hate that. Alright, everybody. If you like this video so far, you stayed with us, leave a like, subscribe, drop a comment on what you want us to cover next on this series of things that scare players, or any of our other videos we do here. As I like to say at the end of all of our videos, be nice, roll some dice, and have a good rest of your day. Bye, everybody.